some good news about Donald Trump and some polling. Now, you know that people on the left, anti-Donald Trump, they love to talk about how Donald Trump has been tanking in the polls. And so I think that it is important to give the other side when Trump is actually starting to rebound. And I have felt this coming because I think that the Trump administration, number one, I think that they are focused on affordability. They are focused on the messaging. And I do believe, as I said all last week and the week before, that the best is yet to come. Two, not one, but two new polls show that things may be turning around for the president. Regardless as to how you feel about polling, it is worth mentioning the president's approval rating among millennials, those between the ages of 29 and 44 years old, is up 3 percentage points. Now, that's the good news. Now, he's still underwater. He now has an approval rating of 39% among millennials and a disapproval rating of 54%, but it's going in the right direction. Now, this is an Economist YouGov poll. They say that millennials are the largest age group. Did you know that? The millennials voting bloc, the largest age group. Baby boomers apparently, sadly, dying off. So here now come the millennials, their most important issues. What are the most important issues to millennials? Affordability, debt, being able to afford a home, mental health and burnout are up there as well. And the question is, okay, well, then why are they burned out? They're burned out because they're struggling to pay the bills. Their student debt is way up there as well. They've got a degree they can't use. They've got a job either that they can't stand or has nothing to do with their degree, so on and so forth. Millennials also worry about AI and job displacement and healthcare access and medical debt. That's number 7. So those are the most important issues that millennials are worried about. And Donald Trump is taking steps to handle all of these issues for the millennials and for all Americans. As far as healthcare access goes, he wants to fix Obamacare by shoring up who is on it. But also remember that Donald Trump is working with HHS to lower drug prices in line with most favored nation status. That is huge. Allowing Americans to import cheaper drugs from Canada, also huge. He lowered the cost of insulin. That's what Donald Trump did. That is also a very big deal. Of course, all the tax breaks and the big, beautiful bill. So President Trump is taking measures, is taking steps to try to help millennials and all of the American people. Now, Scott Bessent, and I love this for a lot of different reasons, but Scott Bessent was on with CBS and what is that? Face the Nation. And they're talking about Donald Trump and they're talking about everything that is going on in America and the economy. And Bessent was on there talking with Margaret Brennan about Trump's polling and the economy. Listen to this.
I think the president's frustrated by the media coverage of what's going on.
This is the polling of average Americans.
But I think the average Americans, they are hearing a lot of it from media coverage. And I will tell you that the affordability has 2 components. There's inflation, and then there's real incomes. Real incomes are up about 1%. And what we're not going to do is say that Americans don't know what they're feeling. We've been working on it every day. I was on your show on March talking about affordability. We've made a lot of gains. But remember, we've got this embedded inflation from the Biden years.
I mean, yeah, that is most certainly true. Although we are getting to a year into the Trump administration. So the further we get from Biden, nobody really wants to hear about the embedded inflation from Joe Biden. Certainly nobody on the left or the media, but it's all in the messaging. Because I do believe that while there are some challenges and there are some things that need to be improved, things are getting better. There is still work to be done, but things are slowly turning around. We've talked about them ad nauseum last week. Real wages are up. Gas is down, way down, the lowest in 4 years. But yes, again, some things need to be done. But they keep talking about this affordability problem. And, Listen, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he totally understands that there's some things that they can do to improve the economy, and they're working on it.
The Biden administration created the worst inflation in 50 years, and maybe for working Americans, the worst inflation of all time. And we have pulled that number down. That Strategas Research does something called the Common Man Index. Under Biden, the accumulated inflation number as measured by CPI was about 20%. Their index showed 35. This year, for the first time, the Common Man Index is below the inflation index because the basket of goods for working Americans, food, gasoline, rent is coming down. So I wrote an essay March 12th, 2024, and it talked about the 3 I's: immigration, interest rates, and inflation. Mass unfettered immigration, depressed wages, caused housing prices to go up. President has closed the border. That is fixed. Interest rates have come down. The bond market just had the best year since 2020. And now we are working on inflation, and I expect inflation to roll down strongly next year. I think. All
right, so that is Scott Bessent. You heard him mention, Joan, have you ever heard of the Common Man Index?
I have not.
This is actually really interesting. It's not an official government statistic or index, if you will. This was done by some financial group, but it focuses on what families must buy, right? So not the niceties, things like televisions and vacations.
Or smelly candles. Right? Right. Go on.
You know what, Joan? Just for that, I'm going to get you a skunk-scented candle.
I can't wait.
For your Christmas gift. Anyway, but what a family must buy: food, groceries, gas, utilities, insurance, clothing, kids' clothing usually, and housing. And so you heard him mention that the Common Man Index is actually getting a lot better, according to that metric, a lot better under Donald Trump after the disaster that it was Joe Biden. Now, there's always going to be a lot of debate because I think people always say, well, you've got, it is the economy and it's just numbers. But y'all know that you can look at the economy, and some of these folks will look at the economy and they'll try to skew the numbers to whatever political bent they are. So if you're a Democrat, you're going to focus on the parts of the economy that are not doing well. And if you are a conservative, then you are going to focus on things that are going well for Donald Trump. I've always talked about real wages, and their cost of gas is a no-brainer. And I did find this Common Man Index was really interesting. So I mentioned not one, but 2 polls that are now looking good for Donald Trump. This is from the Daily Mail. President Donald Trump's approval rating has nudged up as economic headwinds have eased, according to the latest Daily Mail poll. The president's rating jumped from 45 to 47% between November 21st and December 4th, according to the most recent Daily Mail JL Partners survey. Now, the 2-point increase over the past weeks comes as prices have stabilized, and I've been talking about that, as prices have stabilized and spending records were set over the Thanksgiving holiday, despite concerns over an affordability crisis, which Donald Trump has branded a Democrat scam. Do you hear the numbers? I mean, the numbers are constantly updating. You hear what the numbers are up to now with Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Holy mackerel. Black Friday and Cyber Monday both broke online spending records over the Thanksgiving weekend. $44.2 billion was spent online alone, according to an Adobe Analytics report. That is huge. That tells you that, and I don't know what the latest numbers were on consumer confidence. I'm air quoting that. Consumer confidence. But that tells you the Black Friday and Cyber Monday, with all of those people, all of those consumers consuming, that tells you that they do have some confidence in the economy. They say the rosier results also appear while the national average for gas prices dipped below $3 per gallon for the first time since 2021. Do you know there's a gas station by my house? They're selling gas for $1.99.
Wow.
$1.99.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's like they've got one of those little, I don't know what you call them, like placard signs, out proudly on the corner. $1.99 a gallon. for this gas station. Nonneville and Saundersville Road. That's if you want to find it. If you're in Wilson County, Nonneville and Saundersville Road. That's where this place is. They say the rosier results appear on the national average for gas dipped below $3 a gallon for the first time since 2021. According to AAA, the average remains significantly below the median prices for 2022, 23, and 2024. United States GDP is also looking its strongest since Q3 of 2023, fueled by increased consumer spending, according to a recent Bureau of Economic Analysis report. In other words, things seem to be looking up with the economy. And if, don't give me, consumer confidence reports and all of these egghead economic numbers. What are people doing? Sam, can we do a new Daily Dan poll? Figure out a way to do it, because I'm on the air and I'm Omahaing over here. Just how do people feel about the economy? How are they feeling? Strong, sort of strong, medium, whatever. You figure it out. But I'm just kind of curious as to where the audience is right now as we have, surpassed Black Friday and Cyber Monday, heading into the holidays. And certainly if you missed the 5 o'clock hour, my wife's crazed candle purchases. People are feeling pretty strong about the economy. And certainly I think it was Bed Bath & Beyond, wherever it was that I was in. I mean, that place was absolutely packed. All right, now, real quick, Joan, let's play some audio from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she was on, what happens, right? So somebody comes out against President Trump, and then they get all kinds of media coverage because, you are now what some people would call a unicorn, where you are a Republican who is now willing to go up against Donald Trump. You know what's going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was calling for the Epstein files to be released. She has now decided to quit the Republican Party, I guess. And has she actually quit being a Republican? Has she gone to an independent, or she just decided that she was going to quit Congress?
I don't think she switched parties.
No, I don't think she switched parties either. I think she's still a Republican, but she just decided that she didn't want to deal with Congress anymore and Donald Trump. Basically what President Trump did was he said, okay, I will support anybody who comes out against Marjorie Taylor Greene if you want to primary her in the next election, heading into the midterm elections. And so she just decided that she was going to step aside. So she is now talking a lot about Donald Trump, bagging on the president a lot. She was on with Leslie Stahl and 60 Minutes last night, and one of the things that she said is that Republican members of Congress are laughing at Donald Trump behind his back. Listen.
Behind the scenes, do they talk differently?
Yes.
How?
Oh, it would shock people.
Well, let's shock people.
Okay. I watched many of my colleagues go from making fun of him, making fun of how he talks, making fun of me constantly for supporting him, to when he won the primary in 2024, they all started, excuse my language, Leslie, kissing his ass and decided to put on a MAGA hat for the first time.
So that is number one. Now, believe it or not, I don't know whether you folks believe it or not. I don't. I think that there's some people within the Republican Party that kind of roll their eyes and they get frustrated with the president sometimes because, and I've said this before, nothing new. Send your hate notes to, Dan at 997WTN.com. I do get frustrated with the president's messaging at times, and especially when he calls out the Republicans for their inability to message, but whatever. But I don't know. I think the Republicans probably talk about their frustration with the president. Do I believe that it is as bad as she makes it sound? No, I don't think it's that bad. But for Marjorie Taylor Greene, she needs to do whatever she can to get some publicity and get some airtime on places like 60 Minutes. Let's see here. If this is that a video? Nope. Let me play this other one too. This was a great moment. Did you see the moment where she and Leslie Stahl, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Leslie Stahl, started going back and forth on being toxic? Did you see this? This is great audio. So Leslie Stahl goes after Marjorie Taylor Greene and said, "You've been very toxic." Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene looks right back at Leslie Stahl and says, "Well, you have too."
It's the most toxic political culture, and it's not helping the American people.
But you contributed to that. You were out there pounding, insulting people.
Leslie, you've contributed to it as well with your own program. Yes, you're accusatory, just like you did just then.
I know you're accusing me, but I'm smiling.
You're accusing me.
I am accusing you.
But we don't have to accuse one another.
I want you to respond to what you have done in terms of insulting people, yelling at people, and then saying...
I'd like for you to respond for that.
I don't...
No, you can respond to that.
I don't insult people.
You do, in the way you question, and you're accusing me right now.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, look, Leslie Stahl has been part of the mainstream media for many, 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 many years, and she's also in her interviewing style with Donald Trump and then clearly with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Although, I don't know, do you think... Here's the thing. Leslie Stahl asking about the toxicity of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been very toxic. I mean, let's be honest. Some could say, she's a truth teller. I would say that she's a truth teller. I think that she also responds to the hatred that she gets. And personally, I like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I obviously like Donald Trump. And so I feel like there's two people that I like a lot who are going after each other and butting heads. But for, Leslie Stahl to say, "Oh, me toxic? No, I'm not toxic at all. What about you?" Marjorie Taylor Greene has already apologized for her role in creating this sort of, toxic social media political environment. She's already apologized for that. So she's going to have to comment on this every interview that she has because everybody's going to keep asking her the same question over and over and over again. But during this particular interview, I am absolutely team Marjorie Taylor Greene. All right, you know what we're doing? We are currently heading into Christmas, bucking our company-mandated Christmas music with our own. This is Joan's selection for today. What in the world?
Honestly.
Really, Joan?
If you don't know,
I don't know.
You don't know.
No, I don't know. Real quick, because Hans Von Spakovsky is on hold listening to this hijinks and shenanigans.
I bet he knows.
You know what? I bet you Hans Von Spakovsky actually has no idea what this is.
I think
Should we ask him before you explain it real quick?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Could he hear it on the phone? All right, hold on. Hey, Hans Von Spakovsky, we're here to talk about gerrymandering, but did you hear that music we were just playing?
I did, but I can't tell you what it is. I was just thinking, what's my favorite fun Christmas song? And, like most people, it's probably got to be Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That was definitely not that, right?
No.
Okay.
Joan, in 25 seconds or less, because we got important business to talk about with Hans.
You have to watch the movie White Christmas to understand.
White Christmas from what, like 1912?
Oh, come on. It's a classic.
Hans, so Joan doesn't know anything hip. And her version of classic is like old and dusty. So that... Anyway, thank you, Joan.
Yes, you have to watch the movie. I encourage you to do it. It's one of the funniest scenes, and it has just a great... That song has a terrific following just because it's so crazy in the movie.
All right. Thank you, Joan, as we ring in the Christmas spirit. Mm-hmm. And by the way, friends, if you want to watch us on Super Talk TV, you'll see my official Christmas sweater that I have on today as well. It is green. And speaking of old and dusty, Hans, I actually bought this without spousal approval. My wife actually said, I don't like that sweater. And I said, why? And she says, because it looks horrible on you. I love the sweater, and doggone it, I'm going to wear it.
I like that sweater. That's pretty nice.
Oh, Joan likes this. Thank you. Wow, for once, Joan and my wife actually disagree on something. All right, back to business. All right, so Hans, real quick, I want to talk about Supreme Court redistricting and everything else that's been going on. First of all, there is a meme, and I'm showing it on Super Talk TV, but I'm going to read it. Gerrymandering. Massachusetts, 36% Republican, 0 seats. Connecticut, 42% Republican, 0 seats. I mean, it goes all the way down. You got Maine, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Vermont, Hawaii, and Delaware. And, percentages of Republicans and 0 seats. All states that have done hardcore gerrymandering. Tim Burchett, our own congressman, tweeted that, and so I'm going to assume I know some of that is correct. I have not fact checked all of it, but does that sound, relatively speaking, right to you?
Yeah, oh no, because I have actually looked at that, and he's right. Listen, Republicans are amateurs compared to Democrats who are professionals at partisan gerrymandering, and in blue state after blue state after blue state, they have engineered the congressional districts so that so the Republicans have zero representation, which is why this whole fight in Texas, where the Texas legislature changed just a small handful, and so the Democrats still have congressional seats. I just shake my head at the irony of it and the way the media has covered it, or I should say miscovered it.
Oh, what a great way to put it. Miscovered it. I mean, I believe that they are intentionally lying or just sort of narrative peddling, which is, we know what they do. The Democrats, right. The Democrats are the ones that really started to do this gerrymandering. Was California the first place where they really started doing this hardcore?
Well, yeah, but what people ought to be complaining about really is California. Because remember, California, the voters there years ago got tired of the partisanship of the gerrymandering, and so they voted to transfer the power from the state legislature to a so-called independent redistricting commission.
Yep.
What they've now done, is taken the power back from that independent redistricting commission because they're basically saying it wasn't partisan enough. So if there's anybody in the country ought to be criticized, it's California, not these Texas legislators and legislators for doing what they did.
I feel like, and there's some people, we have a text line here, Hans Von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. We have a text line here, and people throw in comments and questions, and they come straight to the studio, 615-737-9986. I would give my own real definition of what gerrymandering is, but I've got somebody who I think you've actually written, books on this and written articles on this. So can you go ahead and give us the just so people know and catch up, can you give me the official Hans Von Spakovsky easy to understand definition of gerrymandering?
Well, gerrymandering is when state legislators, draw up political districts to favor their political party. So if they're Republicans, for example, based on prior voting patterns, they probably want at least, 55% of the eligible voters in a particular district to have a history of having voted for the GOP. They are tempered in doing that in some states by the fact that there are laws in place that say that districts have to be, for example, compact. They have to keep counties together. They can't be these really bizarre shapes. But in places like Delaware and Massachusetts, they don't care about that. That's how they got to 0 GOP seats, despite the fact that Trump got a good percentage of the vote in last year's election.
What's interesting too, Hans, is that this is so funny. The left-leaning critics of gerrymandering will say that Republicans are doing it based on race and not any other reason. You always hear like race-based gerrymandering, but it's not based on race per se. It's based on, votes and where people are living. I mean, right. Do I have that right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And in fact, that's one of the problems in the law in this area is too many judges fail to distinguish between politics and race. Look, if Republicans, for example, are drawing up districts to favor Republican voters, the fact that 95% of black voters vote for the Democratic Party means that just based on voting patterns, they may end up, the black voters, all in one particular district. But that's not because of race. It's because of the way they vote.
Exactly. All right, 6:45. Coming up, Hans, we're going to talk about what's going on in Virginia. And part of my question is, as all of these different states are going to begin to gerrymander, really this is going to ultimately become, what's the point of voting in a general congressional election because everybody knows how it's all going to turn out. So, Hans, let's talk about what is going on in Virginia. I don't know what the current congressional makeup is in Virginia, but the Democrats there are talking about gerrymandering there to the point where the Republicans may only end up with 0 or maybe 1 or 2 congressional seats.
Yeah, because, Virginia is one of the handful of states that has off-year elections, not the same as the federal year. So we just had elections in Virginia. Democrats swept the state. They now have control of the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the legislature, and they've already moved to do the same thing as they did in California, revoke the authority of the Independent Redistricting Commission that they set up a couple of years ago in order to do exactly that, to wipe out the GOP presence in the congressional seats in the state. And again, you don't really hear anybody in the mainstream media complaining about that or saying that, oh, that's somehow unfair. They just keep concentrating on Texas, and yet Virginia Democrats are moving to basically wipe out Republicans completely in the congressional delegation for the state of Virginia.
Well, right now, Hans, they have a 6-5 congressional representation, and it could go to 10-1. And so
right.
I don't. This may be an unfair question to ask because it's a pretty. I don't know. I'm asking for a lot of detail here, but how many after this? How many states will be left that actually have fair congressional representation? Like, do we know what states have not gerrymandered? I mean, Tennessee did it.
Well, there are states in the Midwest that aren't talking about doing this. Iowa and elsewhere, I don't think they're talking about doing it. But look, all of this is not going to last that long because remember, we've got another census coming up in 2030. And there's this huge population shift going on in this country. Blue states are all losing populations. They're all shifting down into the red states, Texas, Florida, places like that. So after the next census, everything's going to be completely redone in every state.
And Hans, our own Senator Bill Hagerty has talked about this many times. He's actually put in legislation to ensure that illegal aliens are counted in the census, I guess, but not counted as far as congressional representation goes.
Right, and that is something that ought to get through. By the way, he's talking about changing federal law on this, but something that I've recommended to states is that they start doing their own state censuses. States did that in the first 100 years of our history. Then they just kind of quit, got lazy, started relying on the federal census. If a state starts doing that, then they can count people who are citizens and not citizens, and then they should switch to using only citizen population in redistricting. That'll make a big change and will be much fairer to people when it comes and legislative line drawing.
All right, so I'm gonna ask your opinion on this one too, and if you can't give an opinion, I totally understand. But watching as the Democrats are responding to the Republicans' redistricting or gerrymandering, it just kind of tells you how serious the Democrats are as far as what is going to happen in the next congressional session if they, Lord help us, end up getting the Senate control of the Senate. Of course, House of Representatives, we'll see what happens there as well. But you have an opinion on whether or not the Democrats will ultimately end the filibuster, nuke the filibuster if they have the opportunity? Do you think they'd actually do it?
Yes. I mean, I think they would because to them the end justifies the means. And whatever they need to get the kind of legislation they want through, I think they're willing to do.
So you think the Republicans ought to beat them to it?
No, I think, look, there are no permanent victories in Washington, as everyone knows. And at some point, Republicans will be in the minority again. Yep. And if they don't have the ability to filibuster bad bills, then we will get things like as bad as or worse than Obamacare that will go through Congress, and all of us will be hurt by that. Yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't think they should get rid of the filibuster.
Hans Von Spakovsky, as always, love to have you on. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, too. Thanks.
All righty. There you go. Didn't shank his name once, Joan.
Congratulations, Dan.
I know.
How many years did it take you?
Oh, gosh. I wonder if he still remembers the first time that I tried to say his name on WTN. Oh, my goodness. It was a complete train wreck. And he and I had a good laugh about it a couple of months ago. But he's always has such great analysis, and I always appreciate. Although a lot of people are going to disagree with him on ending the filibuster, because you heard him say Democrats will do it, but the Republicans shouldn't. So that's kind of a spicy take, because there are a lot of people that feel like we should. I'm at the point now where I do believe that we should go ahead and beat the Democrats to the punch as far as ending the filibuster, because let's be honest, the Democrats play dirty.